Welcome back. Podcast number 4. First of all, I'm recording this right after podcast number 3, so it's still windy outside. My windows are still down. Second of all, and this is just kind of a side tangent, but I don't know about you guys, but when I start telling stories, I don't know what it is. Maybe I just get super excited. Maybe I just talk so much and I forget to breathe. But whenever I get done telling a story, like my hands and my face are like numb and tingly. You know, like, when your leg falls asleep and then as it wakes up, it's got that weird, like, tingly feeling. And so like you have control of your leg, but it's like a little bit slower. And it feels funny. That's what my face and my hands feel like all the time. Whenever I tell stories, that's what happens. I don't know why or why I told you that story, but here it is. That's fun fact about me. My face and my hands go numb whenever I talk too much. Anyway, podcast number 4. The stories for this podcast are by request of my dad. And I wrote down a couple of them. By the way, I have sticky notes. I got the sticky notes out of my room and I put a stack of sticky notes in my car where they rightfully should be. It's very important to me that I have sticky notes all the time because you never know when you're going to need a sticky note. They come in handy. Sticky notes are great. They're fantastic. Anyway, so I have a sticky note. So I wrote down a couple of stories. I only wrote down 3. And really it's kind of 2. Well, it's like 2.5 stories. But those should be long enough. That will get us through quite a bit of time. Anyway, this is at request of my dad. When I was telling my mom and my dad that I was doing the podcast, my dad suggested that these are the stories I tell. Well, he suggested one specific story, and then I'm adding the other ones because they kind of go together. These are stories about me being totally oblivious and really bad at girls, and which is a fun topic. And I have more stories than just these ones, but these are the ones that I feel like go together the best. Anyway, the first one is from when I was in high school. And it was kind of like toward the end of my junior year, I think. And there were these 2 girls, and they both had an interest in me, although I did not know that at the time. But they did. They both had an interest in me, and I had no idea. And they were pretty close friends. And you know the trope, like the stereotype, like 2 girls are really good friends, and they both like the same guy, and it just starts arguments and feuds, and it ruins their friendship forever. Well, these 2 girls, they came to the conclusion that I was so oblivious that maybe if they worked together, one of them would have a chance. And this this comes together on one particular day after like a concert or a rehearsal or something, and the 3 of us are walking out of the school together. And we're talking and laughing and having fun, and I don't know if I said something or they said something, but then I said something to the effect of like, oh, I'm not very good at dating or blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh no, I bet like you're super great and you're super fantastic. And like, I bet if you asked any girl out on a date, she would say yes. And I was like, oh, that's so kind of you guys. Like, what a nice thing to say. And they were like, no, you'd like any girl, if you were to ask them out on a date, they would say yes. And I was like, oh, that's so flattering. Thank you guys. And they were like, no, you don't understand. Any girl right now, if you asked any girl on a date right now, they would say yes. And I said, oh, that's so kind of you guys. Wow, that really makes me feel good. And by that time we had gotten to my car. So I was like, well, this is me. And I got in my car and I drove away. And it never occurred to me that they were trying to get me to ask them out on a date. And later, I started dating one of them, and it wasn't until like 6 or 7 months into our relationship where one day she was just kind of frustrated for seemingly no reason, and finally she turns to me and she says, "Do you remember this day when all that happened?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I remember that. You guys were being so nice and it really made me feel good about myself." And she was like, "No, you don't understand. We were trying to get you to ask one of us out on a date." And she had to lay it out for me and like explain to me what was going on and what was happening and what I was supposed to do. and I finally, in that moment, I realized, and I was like, "Oh, sorry. I didn't realize." And she's like, "I know." And she'd been frustrated with me for it for a long time, apparently. So that, yep. And that I don't think was a unique occurrence. I'm sure that similar things have happened many times. Another story about my just being bad with girls in general. Last year, I was at FSY, and there was this one girl that I thought was really cute, and that's a whole different story and way too long, so we're just summing it up as I thought she was really cute. But every time I talked to her, I fumbled. It was not going well. I don't do well. Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, there was this other counselor, and he knew about my thing for this girl, and he was talking to me about it and just trying to like pump me up and encourage me and get me to do well, and which I'm very appreciative of. Anyway, at the time I was in Texas, which was this whole ordeal, and so I didn't have my own group of kids because I was mostly just there to like fill in for other counselors when they went on break. So there was like this like devotional, or I think it might have been the musical program. But so I was with this group of kids covering for one of their counselors that was on break. And then I brought their kids to the musical program, and their counselor was there, and so I just left them with their kids, and then I went and I sat in the back. And there was another counselor doing the same thing that I was doing, and so she brought her kids there and then gave them to their counselor, and then she came and she sat in the back with me, and we're talking and having a good time and I'm laughing and things are going well. And then the program gets over and she leaves, and then the other male counselor that I'd been talking to, he comes up to me and he's like, "Dude, why can't you talk to the other girl like you just talked to her?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You were doing so good. You were being flirty and all the things were happening and it was going so well, but you can't do that with the other girl?" And I was like, "I was not being flirty. No, I wasn't." And he was like, "Yes, you were. You very much were." And she was totally being flirty back. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's not fantastic. Oops, my bad. Sorry." And that is not the only time that I have been told that I'm very good at doing the flirty when I'm not trying to do the flirty. But when I am trying to do the flirty, I'm really, really, really bad. Anyway, so all that happens, and I'm like, well, this is weird. And I kind of go about my day. And then the next day is like the last day or whatever. And well, not like the last day, because we were there for 2 weeks. Anyway, so he comes back up to me and he's like, "So, like, I know you have a thing for this other girl, but what about the second girl, the one you were flirting with yesterday?" And I was like, "Oh, she's fun. She's like good friend. But, and he's like, "Dude, you got to figure that out because she really, really likes you." And I was like, "Uh-oh, this is not good, because I just spent like an hour flirting with her yesterday by accident, so I must be giving her the wrong idea. Uh-oh." And and he's like, "How did you not know?" I was like, "What do you mean, how did I not know?" And he continues for like the next 20 minutes to just walk me through the last week and be like, remember when this happened on this day and this happened on this day? Remember when this happened? And I was like, yeah, I remember all those things. And he was like, yeah, that was her flirting with you. And that was her like trying to give you all these hints. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. And and it was bad. It was even just worse than he told me, because I started reflecting and looking back, and like we had met, me and this second girl, we had met at the airport, and we're talking at the airport, and then we got on the same plane, but then I was sharing a seat with someone else, and she was in a different row, but she had been talking to me about a movie, and so she switched places with the other person, the other counselor, so that me and her were sitting together and we could continue talking about the movie. And then we watched the movie together, and she told me all about how it's her favorite movie and she loves this movie. So we literally, like, we watched her favorite movie together on the plane, and we didn't finish it by the time we landed. So we got back together that night and finished the movie, and then spent like an hour or two just talking. And then like throughout the rest of the week, you know, like all the talking and all the flirting, and I had no idea. I thought we were just talking, just being friends, just being pals. And I was like, wow, this is so fun. And apparently that's not what was happening, and that's totally my bad. Oops. Anyway, yeah. So that also was a thing that happened. And everybody else, because I started talking to other counselors, I was like, did you notice all this? And they're like, yeah, didn't you? I was like, no. And they were like, really? How did you have no idea? And they're like, literally, I have spent the whole week with both of these girls, and I kept having multiple people come up and talk to me about both of these girls, and just, they kept having to like point things out to me and being like, this is happening. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. That's, and it was not good. Anyway, to wrap up, I've come to love a specific story to kind of demonstrate what happens in my brain when this goes on. And honestly, I have no idea if I made this up myself. I kind of feel like my dad told this to me, but I also have no recollection of him ever saying this to me. So maybe I made it up myself, and then I just decided that's too good to come from my own brains. My dad must have told me. So this could have come from my dad. This could have come from me. It could have come from somewhere completely different. I don't know. Anyway, but this has become my favorite way to kind of demonstrate what's happening. Imagine there's me, and there's this girl, and I'm very interested in this girl, and the girl is very interested in me. You know, I think she's cute, she thinks I'm cute. We both are wanting this thing to happen. But of course you can't just go up and tell somebody that. That's ridiculous, obviously. So I'm just there like, okay, I'll just stick around. I'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. But the girl, she takes more action, and she decides, I'm going to drop a hint. Let him know that I like him. So she takes out a little piece of paper, and she writes, I think you're cute. Please ask me out on a date. And she folds up the piece of paper, and she says, this is a perfect hint. There's no way he misses it. There's no way he doesn't understand what that means. And she starts walking, and I'm walking too. And so she sees that I'm there. And so she takes her little folded up piece of paper and she drops it on the floor. You know, she's like, oops, drops her little paper. She drops her hint, and I see it. I see it happen. I see the hint get dropped, and I think, perfect. What a wonderful opportunity. So I run up there, I grab the piece of paper, and I go up to her. I hand it back. I don't read it. I don't open it. I hand it back to her and I say, "You dropped this." And she picks it up and she's like, "Thanks." And she leaves and I leave. And I leave thinking, wow, what a stud I am. Go me. She dropped that piece of paper. I picked it up. I gave it to her. There's no way she doesn't notice me now. Look at me being so kind-hearted, helping her out. Things are good. She leaves completely frustrated, thinking, how dumb is this boy? I dropped a hint right in front of him. He didn't even read it. He just hands it back. And so she walks away all frustrated. I walk away feeling all good. I'm none the wiser. I think things are going well. She thinks things are not going well because I'm just a dumb boy who doesn't read the hints that are dropped at his feet. But I think I'm doing well because I picked up the hint and I gave it right back. And that, I think, is the best way I can come to describe how it goes in my brain, that I just don't pick up on any of it. I see the hints, usually. I just don't read them. Anyway, there you go. Podcast number 4. Hope you enjoy. Bye.